The music swells, a sound worth more than a house. This is the Fordham estate, and it is a billion-dollar wedding. Rowena, a woman who served coffee for a living just 2 years ago, is about to marry the man of her dreams, Justin Fordham. But as she takes her first step down the pristine white aisle, her heart isn't pounding with love, it's pounding with vengeance. The groom's family, the smiling guests, and a woman in the front row, they all have a secret. What they don't know is that Rowena has a secret of her own. She's not here to say, "I do." She's here to say, "I know." This isn't a wedding, it's a reckoning. The scent of 100,000 white roses was suffocating. It was the scent of opulent decay, a sweet, heavy perfume designed to mask the rot underneath. Rowena felt the silk of her custom-made gown, a gown that cost more than her entire college education, slide against her skin. Each step she took on the imported aisle runner felt like a drumbeat, a countdown to detonation. To her left and right, the elite of New York, and indeed the world, watched her. Bankers, politicians, old money dynasties. They smiled, but their eyes were sharp. They were evaluating her. The waitress who had, against all odds, captured the Fordham heir. Most saw her as a gold digger, a lucky, simple girl. Simple. Rowena almost smiled. Let them think it. Let them all think it. Her eyes scanned the front row as she walked. There sat Warren Fordham, her future father-in-law. He was dabbing his forehead with a silk handkerchief, his eyes darting nervously. He looked like a man on his way to his own execution. He wasn't far off. Beside him, her future sister-in-law, Genevieve Fordham. Genevieve was staring at her phone, a bored, cruel sneer on her perfectly sculpted face. She'd spent the last 6 months making Rowena's life a living hell, with accidental coffee spills on priceless rugs, blamed on Rowena, and forgotten invitations to family events, leaving Rowena to arrive just as the doors were closing. And then there was the matriarch, Matilda Fordham. She was a statue of ice and diamonds. Her silver hair was coiled perfectly, her posture unwavering. She watched Rowena with a look of cold, satisfied possession. Matilda believed she had won. She believed she had successfully navigated her son's rebellious phase and was now absorbing the simple girl into the family machine, where she could be molded, controlled, and eventually discarded. "You have no idea, Matilda," Rowena thought, her grip tightening on her bouquet of lilies. "You think you're getting a daughter. You're getting a predator." Her eyes moved. There. Brenda Walsh. A family friend who had practically grown up with Justin. Brenda, who was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but had been demoted to the front row after a tearful confession to Rowena weeks ago. Brenda, who sat there now, hand resting gently on her stomach, a look of smug, secret victory on her face. Finally, her gaze locked on the man at the altar. Justin Fordham. This was the hardest part. Justin. He was the one perfect shining thing in this den of vipers. He was kind, he was brilliant, and he was, to Rowena's infinite sadness, completely and utterly blind. He loved his family. He saw them as flawed, eccentric, demanding, but not evil. He thought their disdain for Rowena was simple, old-fashioned snobbery that he could fix with time. He had no idea they weren't trying to shun her. They were trying to frame her. He smiled at her, a genuine, breathtaking smile that had captured her heart in that little coffee shop 2 years ago. "You're late," he'd teased her, as she'd stumbled, spilling lattes. "I'm not," she'd retorted. "You're just early for the rest of your life." It had been a stupid, flirtatious line, but it had made him laugh. Now, as she reached him, his eyes were full of only love. "You look magnificent, Rowena," he whispered, taking her hand. Her heart broke for him, for what she was about to do to him, to his perfect day. Father Michael began, "We are gathered here today, in the sight of God, to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." Rowena tuned it out. She was replaying the last 3 months, the gift from Matilda, a new, top-of-the-line laptop. The helpful gesture of Genevieve, linking her new bank accounts to the family's charity foundation so she could start getting involved. The first clue had been an accident, a misplaced file, a digital folder she shouldn't have had access to, left on her shared drive. It was a ledger. Rowena's father had been an accountant, a quiet man who had taught her one thing. Numbers never lie, kid. People do. These numbers weren't just lying. They were screaming. Millions of dollars funneled from the Fordham Children's Hospital Foundation into a shell corporation she'd never heard of. That night, she dug, using the research skills from her old job, a job at Kroll, the investigative firm, that she'd quit because she was tired of finding dirt on people. She'd followed the digital breadcrumbs, and she found the truth, the shell corporation, the offshore accounts, and the final sickening piece of the puzzle, a new LLC, R.L. Fordham Enterprises, created just 1 week ago. Her initials. They were going to make her a signatory after the wedding. They were going to bury her in their theft. The gold-digging waitress would be the perfect scapegoat. And if anyone here knows any reason why these two should not be joined, this was it. Do you, Justin Fordham, take Rowena to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, he said, his voice ringing with pure, unadulterated joy. The priest turned to her. And do you, Rowena? Rowena breathed in the smell of the roses. She looked at Justin, at his trusting, happy face. She started. Silence. The string quartet, cued to play a soft melody, faltered. She said again, louder. She let go of Justin's hand and turned to the small, discreet microphone on the altar's lectern. Matilda leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Rowena, dear, are you quite well?" she hissed, a perfect, painted-on smile of concern on her face. "I'm perfectly well, Matilda," Rowena said, her voice booming across the lawn, amplified. The silence was absolute. "But before I answer that question, there's something everyone here needs to see. And hear." She reached into her bouquet. Tucked between the lilies was a small, silver remote. She clicked it. Behind the altar, a massive white screen, which was supposed to have displayed a romantic montage of the couple, descended from the floral arch. "Rowena, what is this?" Justin asked, his smile finally fading, replaced by confusion. "It's called Discovery, Justin," she said, her voice hard. "Something your family knows all about." The entire wedding party was frozen. A gasp rippled through the guests. Genevieve actually looked up from her phone. "Rowena, darling," Matilda said, her voice rising, losing its silken edge and gaining a metallic, dangerous one. "This is not the time for theatricals. The heat must be getting to you. Someone get her some water." "Oh, I'm not thirsty, Matilda. I'm furious," Rowena said, her voice echoing in the stunned silence. "You see, I was going to play a slideshow of our happy moments, but I found something far more appropriate. Let's call this the Fordham Family, a retrospective." Justin took a step toward her. "Rowena, stop. What are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself." "No, Justin," she said, her heart aching as she looked at him. "I'm saving you. And myself." She clicked the remote. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a spreadsheet. Not yet. This was for the appetizers. The image was grainy, clearly from a hidden camera. The location was a hotel suite. The date stamp in the corner was from 6 weeks ago. the night of Justin's bachelor party. The video showed Justin, looking annoyed, opening his hotel suite door, and in walked Brenda Walsh, wearing nothing but a black silk robe. In the front row, Brenda went pale. The audio was clear. "Justin, baby," Brenda's voice purred from the speakers. "Stop pretending. I know you're just doing this to appease your mother. You don't want this waitress. You want me. We've always belonged together." The video showed Brenda trying to kiss him, wrapping her arms around his neck. And it showed Justin, clearly and decisively, pushing her away. "Brenda, you're drunk, and you're embarrassing yourself," Justin's voice said, cold and angry. "My family put you up to this, didn't they? Get out, now!" "But Justin, get out!" The video ended. Rowena turned to the crowd. That, Rowena announced, was phase 1 of the get rid of the waitresses plan, orchestrated by Matilda and Genevieve, to prove my fiancé was unfaithful, so I would run back to my little coffee shop with my tail between my legs. It's a lie," Genevieve shrieked, standing up. She paid that woman to entrap him." "Quiet, Genevieve. I'm not done," Rowena snapped, and Genevieve, shocked, actually sat back down. "When that failed," Rowena continued, pacing the altar, "they moved to phase 2, a more personal approach." She turned and locked eyes with Brenda Walsh. "Brenda, why don't you tell everyone what you told me last week, in confidence?" Brenda was shaking, her face a mask of terror. "You don't want to? All right, I'll do it for you." Rowena's voice became a sickly sweet mockery. "Oh, Rowena, I have to tell you something. I can't live with the lie. I'm pregnant. And it's Justin's. He's just marrying you for appearances, to protect the family name. Please, for the sake of our baby, let him go." A collective, massive gasp went up from the guests. All eyes flew to Justin, who looked like he'd been punched. "What? Brenda, that's insane." "A very touching performance, Brenda," Rowena continued, her voice like ice. "A desperate woman, pregnant, in love with a man who is marrying another. It's a classic. There's just one problem. 2, actually." She clicked the remote again. The screen changed. "The first problem," Rowena said, "is that I know for a fact Justin can't. Well, let's just say a skiing accident in Aspen 8 years ago made it a medical impossibility for him to conceive a child without extensive medical intervention. He told me all about it on our 3rd date. He believes in honesty." Justin winced. "Rowena, that was private." "Was it, Justin? Or was it just something else your family could use?" She shot back. "But that's not even the best part. Because you are pregnant, aren't you, Brenda?" Brenda was openly sobbing now. "I was curious," Rowena said. "So I had a friend follow you to your OB/GYN appointments, Dr. Robert Peterson on Park Avenue. You've been going for 6 weeks. The screen changed again. It was a scanned document, a medical file. You see, Brenda was so desperate to be a Fordham, she didn't care which one, and when Justin rejected her, she just moved down the row. Rowena pointed to the screen. "This is a fertility test from Dr. Peterson's clinic, dated 6 weeks ago. It is, as you can see, highly positive. But the name at the top, it isn't Justin Fordham." She zoomed in. The camera feed to the screen was perfect. The name was crystal clear. Patient, Warren L. Fordham. The silence that followed was not silence. It was the sound of a vacuum, the sound of all air being sucked out of the state of New York. Warren Fordham made a small, gurgling sound and slumped over in his chair. Matilda didn't even look at him. Her face, Her entire body had gone rigid. She was staring at Brenda, and the look in her eyes was no longer cold. It was murderous. "Warren!" Brenda shrieked, finally finding her voice and standing up. "Warren, tell them you promised me. You said you were going to leave that icicle, and we'd be a family." Warren, clutching his chest, just shook his head, muttering, This is a soap opera," someone whispered in the third row. "Oh, we're not even close to the main event," Rowena said. She turned, her gaze falling on Matilda. "That was just the family drama, Matilda. That was for me. This next part. This is for everyone you've ever stolen from." Justin, his face ashen, finally understood. He looked from his father to Brenda, then to the screen, then to Rowena. "Rowena, what have you found?" "The truth, Justin," she said, her voice softening for just a second. "The truth you were never willing to look for." She clicked the remote. The medical files vanished. In their place, a spreadsheet appeared. "This," Rowena said, her voice dropping into the precise, clear tone of a prosecutor, "is the Fordham Foundation, the one you all donate to at their lavish galas, the one that's supposed to be building hospitals in Africa and funding scholarships for underprivileged children." The screen was now populated with numbers, bank statements, wire transfers. "My father was an accountant," Rowena said, looking out at the crowd. "He taught me to read numbers, and these numbers, they tell a story." She pointed to a line item. "This, for example, a transfer of $5 million earmarked for medical supplies in Ghana, but it didn't go to Ghana. It went here." She clicked. A new document, a registration for a shell corporation, MGW Solutions, LLC. "MGW," Rowena said, tapping the letters on the screen. "I was confused at first, but then I realized. Matilda, Genevieve, Warren. How creative." Genevieve, who had been staring at her father in disgust, snapped her head up. That's a lie. I don't know what that is." "Don't you, Genevieve?" Rowena clicked again. "This is a wire transfer from MGW Solutions for $1.8 million to a private encrypted wallet in the Cayman Islands. And, oh look, this is a receipt from that same week for a new Bugatti. Your name is on the title. A congratulations on your 25th birthday gift. From yourself." Genevieve went from shrieking to silent. Her tan face paled. "They have been doing this for 15 years, Rowena said, her voice rising with the righteous fury she had been swallowing for months, skimming, embezzling, stealing from the sick, from children, all to fund. This." She gestured wildly at the opulent wedding, the diamond necklaces, the priceless art. "All of this is built on theft." Matilda Fordham finally stood up. Her voice was low, and it carried farther than Genevieve's shriek. "You vermin!" "Sit down, Matilda," Rowena commanded, and the power in her voice, the power of pure, unadulterated truth, actually made the matriarch flinch. "You're right, Matilda," Rowena said. "I am vermin. I'm a rat you let into your pristine house, and rats are very good at sniffing out filth, and they're even better at chewing through wires." "But that's not the best part," Rowena said, her voice suddenly conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. "The best part is what you planned for me." She clicked the remote one last time. A new LLC document appeared. R.L. Fordham Enterprises. "You see," Rowena explained to the horrified, captivated audience, "Matilda and Genevieve didn't just hate me because I used to serve coffee. They hated me because I wasn't part of their plan. They hated me because my fiancé, her son," she motioned to Justin, "is the only clean part of this family. His tech division? It's legitimate. He's legitimate. And he was starting to ask questions. He was getting curious about the family finances. They needed a firewall. They needed a scapegoat. They needed me. This company, she pointed to the screen, was set up last week, in my name. Rowena, well, they didn't know my middle name, so they just used L. They were going to make me a signatory on the foundation's board after the wedding. A welcome to the family gift. And then, in 6 months, when the annual audit finally came, an audit they knew was coming, all of this, all this theft, would point directly to me. The dumb waitress who got greedy, the gold digger who finally showed her true colors. They would have fed me to the wolves, to the SEC, to the FBI, all to save themselves. Matilda was staring at her, not with anger, but with a strange, cold appreciation, the look one gives a rival predator. You are far more clever than I gave you credit for, Rowena, Matilda said. And you, Rowena replied, are exactly as stupid as I thought you were. You thought I was a child. You recorded yourselves. Rowena pressed the final button. It wasn't a document. It was an audio file. The sound of Genevieve's smug, laughing voice filled the air. She's so stupid, Mother. She's practically drooling. She'll sign anything we put in front of her. Oh, is this for the charity? Of course. God, she's a moron. By Christmas, she'll be in a cell, and Justin will finally see what a gold-digging idiot she is. He'll come right back to us. He always does. A beat, then Matilda's voice, cold, precise. She is a means to an end, Genevieve. Remember that. We clean the books, we let her take the fall, and we secure the legacy. Justin will be upset, for a time, but yeah, as you said, he always comes back. The audio file ended. The silence that followed was so profound, Rowena could hear a bird chirping in a tree 100 yards away. Genevieve Fordham let out a raw, animal sound of pure panic. That's not me! It's fake! It's AI! A deep fake! She's a witch! Matilda Fordham, for the first time in her life, lost her composure. She didn't faint. She didn't scream. She crumbled. She stumbled back, catching herself on the priceless floral arch, clutching her pearls as if they were a life raft. You've ruined us, she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. You've ruined everything. Now, all of it. All the evidence. All the lies. It was all hanging in the air. And every single person, the guests, the staff, the disgraced father, the hysterical sister, the ruined mistress, the collapsed matriarch, turned to the one person who hadn't ordered spoken. They all turned to the groom. Justin Fordham stood motionless. His face was a mask of carved stone. He hadn't flinched. He hadn't moved. He had just watched. He watched the video of Brenda. He watched his father collapse. He stared at the spreadsheets. He listened to the audio of his mother and sister, plotting to send the woman he loved to prison. The entire world, his entire world, had been dismantled in the space of 10 minutes. Rowena felt a sudden, sharp pang of, not regret, but fear. She had done it. She had laid the bomb, and she had lit the fuse. But she had no idea what Justin would do. Would he explode? Would he deny? Would he defend them? She turned to him. Her voice, for the first time, was not the voice of a prosecutor. It was the voice of a woman, trembling and exhausted. The microphone was still live, catching her every shaky breath. I found all of this 3 months ago, she said, speaking only to him. I've spent every day since then pretending, acting like the happy, naive bride. I went to the cake tastings. I picked out the stupid flowers, all of it, because I had to know. She stepped off the altar, walking the few feet that separated them, until she was standing directly in front of him, her wedding dress brushing his tuxedo. I had to know if you were a part of this. She looked directly into his unreadable blue eyes. Were you, Justin? Did you know? Did you know they were going to frame me? Did you know your father was with her? Did you know your mother and sister were embezzlers? The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. The only sound was Genevieve's pathetic sobbing. His family, seeing their last lifeline, lunged for it. "Justin!" Matilda shrieked, finding her voice again. It was no longer the voice of a queen. It was the desperate plea of a cornered animal. "Son, don't listen to her. It's a business disagreement, a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Quietly. Tell everyone to leave. We're family. Blood. You can't choose her. Over blood." Genevieve scrambled to her feet. "Yeah, Justin, don't let this trash, this waitress, destroy our family. Tell her to get out. Tell her you hate her." Justin Fordham looked at Rowena. He looked at the tears she was holding back. He looked at the exhaustion, the courage, the sheer, terrifying strength it had taken for her to do this. Then he looked over her head. He looked at his mother, at his sister, at his weeping, pathetic father. He slowly reached up and adjusted his perfect black bow tie. He straightened the cuffs of his tuxedo. He took the microphone from Rowena's trembling hand. He turned to his personal security head, a tall, imposing man named Kessler, who was standing by the entrance to the garden. And then the billionaire groom finally spoke. His voice was amplified. It was calm, it was controlled, and it was the most terrifying sound any of them had ever heard. "Kessler, lock the doors. Panic." "What?" a guest in the front row shrieked. "Lock the doors! You can't keep us here!" Kessler didn't even blink. He just nodded. "Sir." He and 2 other security men Rowena had always assumed were just drivers, moved to the garden's wrought iron gates. They shut them with a heavy, final clang. "Justin, what are you doing?" Matilda cried, her voice now laced with real fear. "Open those gates!" Justin ignored her. He raised a hand. "Kessler, my apologies. Let the guests leave. The staff, the orchestra. You all stay. You are witnesses." A new, different kind of panic erupted. The innocent guests, rival billionaires, society columnists, nosy aristocrats, were now desperate to stay. This was the scandal of the century, and they were about to be ejected. "Mr. Fordham, please," one reporter started. "Escort the guests out, Kessler. Their cars, please," Justin commanded. "And confiscate no phones. I want the world to see this." Kessler's team was brutally efficient. Within 5 minutes, the garden was eerily empty. The crowd of 300 had been reduced to the core group. It was just Rowena, still standing at the altar. Justin beside her. The terrified catering staff and the stunned orchestra huddled by the hedges. The family, Matilda, Warren and Genevieve, and Brenda, still held by a separate guard. The stage was set. Justin Fordham turned his back on his family. He walked back to Rowena and gently, tenderly, took both of her hands. They were ice cold. "Rowena," he said, his voice now quiet, for her alone, but the microphone still caught it. "To answer your question," he took a deep breath. "No, I did not know the extent. I did not know they planned to frame you. I did not know about my father and Brenda." He looked physically ill for a moment. "But I am not an innocent man. I am guilty," he said, his voice growing stronger, "of the worst sin of all, willful ignorance." "I knew what my mother was," Justin said, his eyes locked on Rowena's. "I knew what my sister was. I knew our family's money was complicated, dirty. I've spent my entire life, my entire adult life, trying to build a clean part of the company, the tech division, the green energy projects. I hoped I could build something good that would outweigh the rot I suspected was at the core. He squeezed her hands. I told myself they were just ruthless, not criminal. I told myself their hatred for you was just snobbery, the old money disdain for the new. I didn't want to see it, because to see it, I would have to act, and I was a coward. His voice broke, just for a second. I was afraid to destroy my own family. I was afraid of her. He glanced at Matilda. And then you came into my life, he said, his voice full of awe. This brilliant, funny, vibrant woman who served me coffee with a smile and argued with me about philosophy. And you weren't afraid of anything. You, a waitress, have more courage, more integrity than anyone in my entire bloodline. He dropped his head. I didn't deserve you. I was never going to be good enough for you. Not while I was letting them slide. Oh, save the dreadful speech, Matilda spat, her composure returning as pure, unadulterated venom. Are you really going to choose this waitress over me? Your mother? The woman who gave you everything? Justin let go of Rowena's hands. He turned, and the mask of the sun, the mask of the man, it all fell away. What was left was the CEO, the king, and he was about to pass sentence. Mother, he said, his voice flat and cold. You gave me nothing. You used me. You used my name, my grandfather's good name, his legacy, to fuel your bottomless, pathetic greed. You are not my mother. You are, as Rowena so perfectly stated, a common criminal. He didn't wait for her to respond. He turned to Genevieve, who was now just a whimpering, mascara-stained mess. Gigi, you're just pathetic. You have had every advantage, every opportunity in the world, and you have done nothing but spoil. You are a petty, cruel, useless child. And now you are a felon. Get ready to finally grow up. In a very, very small room. He then looked at his father, who was now sitting on the ground, his head in his hands. And you, Dad, Justin actually seemed at a loss. Why? Brenda? Her? After everything Mum did to you, this is how you are the weakest man I have ever known. And you broke your vows. You broke everything. Finally, he looked at Brenda. Brenda, get a lawyer, a good one. You're going to need him. Both for the fraud charges, for this, he motioned to her stomach, and for the custody battle. I imagine my mother, and he said the word with such poison, will be very interested in suing you for alienation of affection. And she will take that child. You picked the wrong family to betray. As if cued by his final judgment, sirens wailed in the distance. They were not faint. They were close. Justin turned back to the stunned priest, Father Michael. Father, Justin said, I'm afraid the wedding is off. The sirens were getting louder, closer. They weren't just on the main road. They were coming up the private drive. But, Justin continued, a strange, dark look in his eye, I believe we have a confession, or 3, to hear. The siren stopped, but it wasn't police cars that burst through the hedges and onto the priceless manicured lawn. It was 3 black, unmarked sedans. A woman in a sharp, dark blue suit stepped out of the lead car. She was flanked by 2 equally severe-looking men. She strode across the grass, her heels not sinking. She seemed to walk on air. She walked straight past the family, straight past the staff, and stopped in front of Justin. "Justin Fordham?" she said, her voice crisp. "Agent Price," Justin said, nodding. "We received your call this morning, and your data packet." Rowena's head snapped toward him. Her blood ran cold. My call." Agent Hannah Price looked at Rowena. Miss, you've been busy." Justin looked at Rowena, and for the first time, she saw a new emotion in his eyes. Not just love, not just shame, admiration, and a little bit of guilt. I found your research last week, Rowena," he confessed, his voice low. In the digital safe you created. I knew your old passwords." You knew?" she whispered, horrified, and something else. I knew you were digging. I didn't know what you'd found. I've been validating it. My own team of forensic accountants. They confirmed everything. Every single dollar. You knew," she said again, the pieces clicking into place. Your willful ignorance. It was willful," he said, "until you gave me the courage. You showed me the path." "This morning," he said, turning to the agent. "I sent Agent Price everything. My files. And your files. I told her that justice was supposed to be served at 3 p.m., one way or another. And here we are," Agent Price said. She turned to the Fordham family. "Matilda Fordham, Warren Fordham, Genevieve Fordham, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, embezzlement, and a long list of other charges." The arrests were not dignified. Matilda, true to form, was silent. She held her head high as the agents cuffed her, her diamond earrings glittering in the afternoon sun. She looked not defeated, but inconvenienced. Her only words were to Agent Price. "My lawyer is Jeremy Nash. I suggest you call him." Warren, on the other hand, was a mess. He was blubbering, apologizing to everyone, to the priest, to the agents, to a nearby waiter. He seemed almost relieved. Genevieve was the real spectacle. She became a screaming, kicking, scratching nightmare. "Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? Justin! Justin! You can't do this. I'm your sister. I'll tell everyone. I'll tell them what you did in college. Justin!" Justin didn't even turn around. He just stood, watching as his sister was physically carried off his property. Brenda was the last to go. "Agent Price," Justin said, "please ensure she gets medical attention. And a statement is taken. My father, he's a material witness to her fraud as well." "We understand, Mr. Fordham," Agent Price said. "We'll untangle this." She gave a last, long look at Rowena. "Nice work." And then they were gone. The sirens faded. The black cars vanished. The oppressive silence of the garden returned, broken only by the quiet sobbing of a cellist in the orchestra. The garden was a war zone. Chairs were overturned. Champagne glasses were shattered. The beautiful 7-tier wedding cake stood untouched, a white monument to a life that would never be. And on the altar, stained with grass from the fed's boots, stood the priest, the bride, and the groom. Father Michael, a man who had seen 40 years of weddings, funerals, and baptisms, simply adjusted his robes. "Well," he said, his voice dry, In all my years, I have never." He just shook his head. I think I need a very stiff water." Rowena looked at Justin. He looked at her. The adrenaline, the fury that had been fueling her for 3 months. It all drained away, and she was just a woman, in a very expensive dress, standing in the middle of her own life's wreckage. "So," she said, her voice a small whisper, You knew." I suspected," he said. "Rowena, I knew you were brilliant. I knew that before I ever knew your name. You told me you'd quit your job at Kroll because the corporate world was soul-crushing. You wanted to serve people something simple and honest, like coffee. I thought it was charming. I didn't realize you'd been practicing." He stepped closer. "My own team, my private team. They'd been hitting a wall for years. My mother's encryption, her ledgers, they were flawless. Then, 3 weeks ago, my head of security, Kessler, he told me they'd found a digital back door, a key. They didn't know what it was. It was just a word." He looked at her. "The word was sprocket." Rowena's hand flew to her mouth. My childhood dog. You had been there first," he said, his voice full of wonder. "You'd broken her encryption months ago. You were just waiting. I thought you were in on it," she whispered, the tears finally coming. I thought, this morning, that I was going to lose you too. I thought I was exposing you." "I know," he said, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. I saw the files. I saw the R.L. Fordham Enterprises. I saw the frame-up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could trust you. I thought, maybe this was your own elaborate blackmail scheme." "Justin," she said, scandalized. I know, he said, "but I had to be sure. So, I watched you. I watched you pretend to be the blushing bride. I watched you go to fittings and taste that." He pointed at the cake, "all while carrying this bomb. And you never flinched. You never asked me for a single dime. You never changed." He had been testing her. "This morning," he said, "I made the call. I sent them everything. I was going to let you do this. Your way. And I was going to stand by you. I was just going to be your backup. I just didn't know," he said, a small, wry smile playing on his lips. "How spectacularly you would do it. The video? The father? Rowena, you are terrifying." She let out a small, wet laugh. I do my research." The two of them stood there for a long minute, just breathing. "So," Justin said, his voice soft. He gestured to the priest. "Father, I know I technically cancelled the wedding, and my entire family is on their way to jail." "Yes, son, I was here for that part," Father Michael said. "But," Justin said, I was wondering, is there any way we could uncancel it?" The sirens faded, their electronic wails swallowed by the high, sculpted hedges of the Fordham estate. A profound, unnatural silence descended, broken only by the sound of a single, heartbroken cellist who was still weeping quietly into her sheet music. The garden was a war zone. The pristine white aisle was smeared with grass and mud from the federal agents' boots. Chairs lay on their sides, their silk ribbons fluttering in a sad breeze. The 7-tier wedding cake, a marvel of sugar and artistry, stood like a tombstone, a monument to a life that had just been executed. And on the altar, stained and trampled, stood the priest, the bride, and the groom. Father Michael, a man whose silver hair spoke of 40 years of baptisms, funerals, and bland, happy weddings, simply stood, his book still open. He looked shell-shocked. He stared at the spot where Matilda Fordham had been cuffed, then at the shattered champagne flute near his feet. He finally cleared his throat, the small sound echoing like a gunshot. "Well," he said, his voice a dry rasp. In all my years, I have never—" He shook his head, a gesture of complete spiritual exhaustion. "I believe I need a very stiff water. Yes, water." He snapped his book shut with a puff of gold-leafed pages. I think I shall take my leave." He was turning to go, a man defeated by the sheer, unadulterated chaos of the afternoon. "Wait." Justin's voice. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the air. Father Michael stopped. He turned. Rowena, who had been staring at the puddle that was once an ice swan, looked at Justin as if he'd grown a second head. Her adrenaline, the fury that had been her fuel for 3 long, agonizing months. It was gone. In its place was a bone-deep weariness. She was just a woman, in a very expensive dress, standing in the middle of her life's own beautiful, necessary wreckage. "Wait. Son, for what?" the priest asked, his patience clearly on its last thread. For the locusts? I feel that's what's next. Locusts." "For the wedding," Justin said. Rowena's head snapped toward him. "Justin, what are you talking about? The wedding. Just... I blew up the wedding." "You did," Justin said, turning to her, a strange, bright light in his eyes that looked terrifyingly like joy. "You blew it to smithereens. It was magnificent." He stepped toward the priest. "Father, I know I technically cancelled the wedding, and I am acutely aware that my entire family is on their way to jail." "Yes, son, I was here for that part," Father Michael said, his hand tightening on his book. "I believe I saw you make the call." "And I've never felt cleaner, Father," Justin said, his voice suddenly strong, clear, and ringing with a conviction that had been absent all day. "I've never felt more free. For my entire life, the Fordham name, it meant this." He gestured to the opulent ruin of the garden. "It meant greed. It meant crime. It meant rot. It was a prison, and I was just another lifer." He looked at Rowena, his gaze so intense it was almost a physical force. "And then she came, and she burned the prison down, with me in it. She didn't try to save me. She trusted me to find my own way out of the smoke." He faced the priest again. "Maybe, from this day forward, the Fordham name, our name, can mean truth. It can mean accountability, but it can't mean that, if this isn't the first day." He turned back to Rowena. He didn't walk. He just was in front of her. And then, in a move that shocked her more than the arrival of the FBI, he got down on one knee, right there, on the mud, on the ruined aisle, amidst the scattered, bruised petals of 100,000 white roses. Rowena gasped, a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Justin, get up, you absolute... What are you doing?" "Rowena," he said, his voice suddenly thick with an emotion he had clearly been holding back. Look, I don't even know your middle name." "Louise," she whispered, the tears that had refused to fall all day now blurring her vision. "It's Louise. Rowena Louise," he smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. My co-conspirator. My avenger. The love of my entire, insane life." He was shaking, the man who had faced down his entire family, who had coolly ordered the gates locked. His hand was trembling as he reached into his tuxedo pocket. "You didn't just save me," he continued. "You saved my company. You saved my soul. You are the most terrifying, brilliant, moral, and compassionate woman I have ever known. And I am so sorry. that I was a coward for so long, that I made you carry this bomb all by yourself. I wasn't alone, she whispered. I didn't know it. He pulled out a small velvet box, not the garish, blood-red one Matilda had insisted on. This one was dark blue. I know. This is a mess, he said, gesturing to the everything. Our honeymoon is probably cancelled. Definitely cancelled, Rowena choked out, laughing through her tears. The press is going to be unbearable. A nightmare. I can handle the press, she said, her voice gaining a sliver of its old steel. My father's love child, with Brenda, is going to be a thing. A very public thing. We'll send a very nice baby gift, Rowena replied, which made Justin laugh, a short, sharp bark. And I've never been happier in my entire life, he said, his voice dropping. He opened the box. It wasn't the 20-carat diamond. It wasn't the gaudy, look-at-me stone his mother had picked. It was the ring she'd pointed at in a tiny, dusty, antique shop window in the village, 6 months ago, when they were still just them. A deep, velvety, cornflower blue sapphire, set in a simple, elegant platinum band. I was going to swap this out after the ceremony, he confessed. But this feels more appropriate. Rowena Louise, who used to be a waitress, and who is now the CEO of my heart. Oh God, that's terrible, she wept, laughing. Never, ever say that again. Never, he promised. Will you, please, Rowena Louise, marry me? Rowena looked at this man, the billionaire who looked like a prince, but had been trapped like a pauper, the man who was willing to burn his own empire to the ground for her and for the truth. She laughed, a real, genuine, shoulders-shaking, relieved laugh. It echoed across the empty, shattered garden. It was the sound of a dam breaking. Justin Fordham, she said, pulling him to his feet, mud, grass, and all. You are completely, certifiably insane. Is that a no? He asked, his face a perfect picture of panic. And I, she said, am a waitress. She threw her arms around his neck, her massive veil enveloping them both. Yes, she said, kissing him, right there in front of the priest and the cellist and God and everyone. Yes, I'll marry you. You crazy, wonderful, finally awake man. Yes. She pulled back, her eyes shining with a new, pragmatic light. But we are paying the priest and the orchestra and the entire catering staff. Double. Justin just looked at her, his heart so full he thought it might burst. Triple, he grinned. They earned it. Hazard pay. They turned, hand in hand, to face the priest. Father Michael, who had watched this entire exchange with the expression of a man witnessing a minor miracle or a major psychological break, simply sighed. But this time it was a sigh of acceptance. He opened his book. Dearly beloved, he said, his voice suddenly finding its formal rhythm, we are gathered here, again, in the sight of God, and that cellist, to join this man and this woman. Let's just skip to the good part. I think you've both testified enough for one day. He looked at them, a small, real smile finally touching his face. Do you, Justin, take Rowena, in truth, in honesty, in scandal, and in health, to be your lawfully wedded wife, till death do you part? I absolutely do, Justin said, his voice ringing with pure, unadulterated joy. And do you, Rowena, take Justin, to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, through this, and whatever fresh hell comes next? I really, really do, she beamed. Then, by the power vested in me, by the state of New York and frankly, by the laws of pure, dumb survival, I now pronounce you married. He didn't even pause. Kiss her. And please, for the love of all that is holy, go home. Justin didn't need to be told twice. He kissed her. It wasn't a wedding kiss. It wasn't for the cameras. It was an end-of-the-world kiss, a beginning of a new one kiss. It was desperate and triumphant, and it tasted like salt and roses. And then they ran. Rowena hiked up her $80,000 custom-made gown, not caring as the hem ripped on a broken chair. Hand in hand, they ran, laughing, down the aisle of their ruined wedding. They ran past the empty chairs, past the half-eaten canapes, past the $100,000 ice sculpture of a swan that was now just a puddle. They didn't take the white, flower-draped limo. They bypassed the entire line of luxury cars and ran straight to Justin's personal vehicle, tucked away by the staff entrance. A sleek, not flashy, dark grey Rivian. He pulled open the passenger door, and she practically fell in, a cloud of silk and lace and triumphant, happy tears. He jumped into the driver's side, his hands on the wheel. They sat there for a second, just breathing. The electric engine was silent. The only sound was their own gasping breaths. The adrenaline was fading. "So," Rowena said, wiping a streak of... She wasn't sure if it was mascara or mud from her cheek. What now, Mr. Fordham?" Justin put his head against the steering wheel and let out a single, long groan. The weight of the day, the weight of the future, suddenly crashed down on him. "Well," he said, his voice muffled, "Mrs. Fordham, first, I have to call my lawyer, a new lawyer, a team of lawyers, and a new PR team, an army of them, and I have to appoint an interim CEO, and we have to find a new house, because that one," he pointed back to the estate, "is definitely a crime scene. My family's assets, all of them, are going to be frozen. The company." He was spinning out, the sheer, overwhelming size of the mess. His mess was hitting him. Rowena smiled. She put her hand on his, stilling his nervous drumming on the wheel. He looked at her. I know a good place," she said, her voice soft and steady. "What?" he asked, confused. For what's next? It's small, and the coffee is terrible. I mean, just awful. But it's honest, and it's quiet, and it's mine. We can start there, with the lawyers and the coffee." He looked at her. This brilliant, terrifying, beautiful woman. His wife. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. I love you, Rowena Fordham." "I love you, Justin Fordham," she replied. "Now, let's go face the music. Together." He smiled, a real, exhausted, happy smile. He put the car in gear. The silent electric engine hummed to life, and the car pulled away, leaving the chaos, the sirens, and the wreckage of the Fordham legacy behind, driving toward a future that was uncertain, definitely scandalous. But finally, theirs. And so, Justin and Rowena drove away, not to a honeymoon, but to a new life. A life they would have to build from the ashes of the Fordham empire. The scandals would follow them for years. The court cases would be brutal, but for the first time, they were both free. They had chosen truth over tradition and love over a corrupt legacy. What they built next wouldn't be a company, it would be a partnership, stronger than any billion-dollar fortune. Thank you for listening to this story. What was your favorite twist? The father? Or the fact that Justin was in on it? Do you think Matilda and her family got what they deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories of karma and sweet, sweet justice, make sure to like this video, share it with a friend who loves drama, and subscribe to the channel for more stories you won't want to miss.